The year started well with a golden eagle discovered in Gelderland in February. After the first report, it took a few days before the bird was relocated on February 28th. I was just having cake for my wife's birthday when the news came in. Going the same day wasn't an option, but luckily the bird was still there on March 1st. That morning there were occasional reports of sightings, but I kept missing it until it finally stayed in the same tree long enough. The bird remained in the Veluwe until autumn. In April, a bandless yellow-billed kite of unknown origin suddenly appeared. That Sunday, several dozen birders missed it. The next day, only 4 people were present when the bird flew out of the area and continued its migration to Scandinavia. So, I am one of only a handful who have seen this species in the Netherlands, though it was rejected due to a lack of a vagrancy pattern, which of course is nonsense, as the rarest species often lack any pattern. Maybe it will be accepted in the future. Unfortunately, I only managed a very distant photo of this bird. A week later, I had another great sighting. I was on Schiermonnikoog twitching a red-throated pipit for my year list when a Memoris warbler was discovered near Julianendorp, a new species for the Netherlands. The bird was out of sight for a while, but was later relocated at a nearby campsite. Unfortunately, I wasn't very skilled at filming yet, so I ended up with shaky footage, which I tried to stabilize with software. On one of the last days of April, I was with my birding friend Jeroen doing a migration count when a dark-eyed junco was found in a garden in Friesland. The homeowners were very hospitable and allowed us into the garden to observe and film the bird. It was my second junco after the famous one in Bijen. These birds seem to be appearing more frequently in the Netherlands, which I certainly don't mind. A few days later, another junco was found, a Cassius junco, a hybrid between the Eastern and Oregon variants. Since it wouldn't count as a new species for the Netherlands, I waited for some friends to be ready before heading out. Unfortunately, that delay led us to dipping the bird. On the way back, we visited a Ross's gull in IJmuiden, once a mythical species south of the Arctic Circle. It is still very rare today, though occasional records exist. This juvenile gave great close-up views on the beach, a nice way to end a day that started with a dip. In early May, an unbanded Demoiselle crane was spotted in Gelderland. The bird was shy and behaved exactly as a wild crane should. Full of hope, I went with Willem to see it. Indeed, the bird was skittish, taking flight whenever too many cars passed by, only to land in a quieter spot to continue foraging. Demoiselle cranes have a bad reputation in the Netherlands due to many proven escapes, so this bird was also rejected on the grounds that it stayed too long during migration. I have my own thoughts on that. 2 days later, a black-winged kite was reported late in the afternoon, perched in a dead tree near the Diependal height, a place I often visited as a beginning birder. Since the pandemic, the height is always packed with photographers, which has made it less appealing to me. But I couldn't pass up the chance to film a black-winged kite up close. So, that evening, I sat with my wife and a few other birders, enjoying this beautiful raptor. A few days later, I was relaxing on the couch when I got a message from birding friend Gijs asking if his photos were good enough to confirm an identification of a collared flycatcher. The photos were high quality, but the bird in them wasn't a collared flycatcher. It turned out that a colleague of Gijs had found and identified the bird during a breeding bird survey that morning. Together, we realized that it looked very much like a semi-collared flycatcher, a potential new species for the Netherlands and the most northwestern record ever. The next day, Willem and I went to confirm the idea in the field. Gijs joined us, and together we established that it was indeed a semi-collared flycatcher. To be absolutely sure, visual samples were collected for DNA analysis to rule out hybrids with other flycatchers. The next step was organizing a twitch. We made a plan and discussed it with the forest ranger, who, unfortunately, was very uncooperative. I have my thoughts on that too. After hearing the bad news, we left. On the way home, Willem and I decided to visit a bearded vulture. Although this was a wild bird, bearded vultures are not accepted in the Netherlands, partly because they are often distinct descendants of hand-raised individuals, and partly because it is debated whether their presence in the Netherlands is natural or just a result of reintroductions. Regardless, it was amazing to see such a massive and powerful raptor. To prepare for a big day in Friesland, I spent a day on Ameland, a wooden island we planned to visit for several scarce species that we wouldn't find on the mainland. Coincidentally, a collared flycatcher was found on the island that day, this time a real one. The bird was elusive and I only managed to get some photos. In mid-May, another exceptional species was found. The first twitchable little swift for the Netherlands appeared in a large group of common swifts near Westkapelle. Twitching swifts is often doomed to fail from the outset, but you miss 100% of the chances you don't take. So Willem and I quickly got into the car for a journey of over 4 hours. Long before we arrived, the bird had already disappeared from view, but we noticed that many swifts were still flying high above Westkapelle. Thinking that they would follow the insects downward in the evening, we spent the whole day lingering around town, bird watching a bit, doing some shopping and so on. Around 7 PM, we decided to look for 2 previously reported European turtle doves. Just as we parked the car, a message came in. The little swift had been seen again. We didn't see any birders standing around and were momentarily confused. Soon we realized that Pim Wolf had the bird in sight, and we had just seen him sitting along the road a while back. We rushed over, and there it was, the little swift. That evening the bird put on a fantastic show, and we had another new species to add to our list. The next rarity I visited was the stone curlew. From the car I could film the bird reasonably well. Stone curlews are notoriously shy birds. Unfortunately, the camera I was using at the time didn't have the best autofocus and decided to focus on the mud instead of the bird. Still, these remain my best shots of the species. At the end of May, a Eurasian scopsowl was reported near Delft. On the way there, Willem and I first stopped in Hilversum to see the squawko heron. As expected, the Eurasian scopsowl was not seen. Luckily, just as we were about to head home, it started calling. After 2 quiet months, August was time to get back out there. A white-rumped sandpiper was seen in Westhoek, and Willem and I were keen to go. As the water level rose, the shorebirds moved closer and closer to the observers. Suddenly, right in front of us, there it was, the white-rumped sandpiper. It was sleeping, but you can't have everything. Then Willem revealed a surprise. Since my wedding was coming up, a bachelor party had been planned for that day. For quite some time, a pygmy cormorant had been wandering through the Netherlands, and it had now settled in a fixed spot near Utrecht. On the way back from dipping a golden eagle on the Veluwe, we stopped by, and the bird was waiting for us. Then came October, and what a month it would be. In early October, we were on Vlieland for the Deception Tours weekend. Willem, Jeroen, I and a few others were conducting a migrant count for Euro Birdwatch when a rustic bunting was reported not far from us. We raced over and managed to see the bird just before it disappeared. Unfortunately, I only got some grainy photos because it was still a bit dark. This year, I finally managed to film the species properly. While we were thrilled about the rustic bunting, a lesser spotted eagle was spotted flying over the southern Netherlands during the same Euro Birdwatch event. That happens occasionally, so we weren't too concerned. However, when the bird was relocated later that day, our spirits sank. Fortunately, probably due to the rainy weather, the bird stayed put for a while, and by Monday morning we got our chance. Just as we had recovered from the lesser spotted eagle, another new species appeared. During a seabird photography trip on the North Sea of Schiermonnikoog, a black scoter was sighted. Efforts were made to arrange a boat for the next day to twitch the bird, but this seemed unlikely. In the afternoon, however, the bird was suddenly spotted from Schiermonnikoog itself. Twitching was now an option. We took the ferry, and by early evening we stood with the sun at our backs enjoying yet another new species. The bike ride back to the ferry was the best ever. The following day, hundreds of birders flocked to Schiermonnikoog because they couldn't make it the day before. I, however, decided to go in the opposite direction. On the Maasvlakte, 2 Asian rarities were seen close to each other, and with the good weather, I had a great chance of getting quality footage. This Siberian stonechat was the easier of the 2. The bird was wonderfully tame and perched at the top of shrubs, making for perfect filming. The other, a much rarer 2-barred greenish warbler, was trickier. It darted quickly through the bushes, never staying in view for more than a second. That was until late in the evening, when it suddenly began foraging on the inner side of the dike, offering a stunning eye-level view. The setting sun behind me completed the scene. Was this the end of it? Definitely not, because yet another new species for the Netherlands appeared. In the far southwest of the country, nearly a 5-hour drive for us, an eastern olivaceous warbler was found in a holiday park. To avoid disturbing vacationers, we initially stood on the park's perimeter, where the bird had also been seen. After hours of waiting without a sighting, some birders ventured into the park and relocated the bird, prompting a frantic dash. Unfortunately, I couldn't get good photos, let alone video footage, but that eastern olivaceous warbler will surely show up again someday. Was that finally it? Nope. While the Telegram group was still buzzing about the eastern olivaceous warbler, news broke of a cream-colored courser in the North Holland Dune Reserve. You could surely call a cream-colored courser a cosmic mindfucker. At 5 PM, an excursion was planned to enter the restricted access area where the bird was located. I had no time to lose. Unfortunately, countless red lights meant I arrived just 5 minutes late, but because I had helped the birder who was helping with the excursion by keeping the black scoter in view on Schiermonnikoog until he arrived, I was still allowed to join. Later, it turned out that many more people got in, but it was still a nice gesture that I won't forget. However, we had to nervously wait at the gate for quite a while before the previous group exited and we were allowed in. The many birders who told me to stay calm clearly had never dipped on a super rare bird within less than a minute. Well, I have. Luckily, this time everything worked out perfectly. October was over, but the rare birds weren't done yet. In early November, a dartfoot warbler and a Rarest warbler were both in the same ditch at Kamperduin. After much patience and many attempts, I was finally able to film the dartfoot warbler properly, having previously visited in much worse weather conditions. Also, the Rarest warbler eventually showed itself reasonably well and allowed for some filming. In the past, this species was notorious for skulking, and if you were lucky, you might get a very poor quality photo. That was also my experience with the first Rarest warbler I saw in 2012. However, in recent years, more individuals seem to appear that show themselves relatively well. A little further away, at yet another holiday park, there was also a dusky warbler. I managed to see that one too, but unfortunately it remained deep inside a bush, and these were the best shots I could get. December also continued with some fantastic highlights. The Caspian plover appeared on the Groningen clay. It was already the 4th record since the first one in 2009. On most days, the bird was only seen from a great distance or went missing, but on this Saturday it showed itself beautifully in fantastic light. By standing in a dry ditch, I could easily get a low-angle perspective. The bird ran long distances and often suddenly stopped, making it difficult to keep it in frame, but I was still very satisfied with these shots. 2021 had one last surprise in store. At the end of December, the first western swamphen from the Netherlands appeared. The UK and Belgium had already had one, and now it was our turn. The bird was discovered by an unsuspecting kayaker who, fortunately, had the presence of mind to photograph it and ask what he had seen. The next day, we could add yet another new species to the list. That made 2021 one of my best birding years so far. If you're new here, please subscribe, give a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.